Hey, Max,
Mm-hmm.
picture this.
Yeah. Okay.
You're trying to convince your friend to see one of the fall movies in theaters this coming weekend,
Yeah. Every day of my life, I'm trying to do that.
and they respond by saying, nah, I'll just wait and watch it at home. What do you do?
I punch him right in the nose.
Nope, Max, we're not going to promote violence on the podcast. Instead, why don't we advise them to listen to this episode and we'll tell them.
Oh, I'll tell them why it's better to see a movie in theaters, for the love of God.
Plus, we're going to talk Black Phone 2, Smashing Machine, Good Fortune, Tron. Let's go to the movies.
Welcome to Picture This, the podcast where we examine the weekly box office and ask, what do movie-going trends say about American culture?
Movie-going is an American passion, but it's hit uncertain times. So mostly we're here to just give you all the reasons to go see a movie in theaters the way that they were meant to be seen. I'm Dave. Over the last 10 years, I've worked for a filmmaker, an agent, and at a movie studio in movie marketing.
And I'm Max, a screenwriter and son of an independent movie theater owner who has spent his whole life in love with the movies.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different movies, as well as just the theater-going experience in general. But first, let's talk about the state of the biz.
All right, Dave, what do we got going on in the state of the biz this week?
State of the biz, Max. I thought this would be a fun conversation to have because TRON Ares, the big Disney-released movie that starred Jared Leto, it tanked. It really underperformed, making $33 million domestically and $60 million globally.
Yeah. So, but what do you mean by underperformed?
So yes, overperforming and underperforming is based on expectations, essentially. People nowadays go into movie weekends thinking that there's a vague idea of how much money each movie should be making, looks like it's going to be making. And that's based on this thing called tracking. Now, tracking is done by, again, I'm not going to pretend to know all the ins and outs of it, but working at a movie studio, I was around it a lot. A very, very loose explanation is polls that are done with general American moviegoers and getting their sentiment on if they'll see a movie, the importance of them going to see the movie, if they have heard of a movie. And there are all these different boxes and categories of how they respond that then will kind of equate to, because of this many people in America thought this, previous movies that had that same score have made $70 million or $10 million or $4 million.
I remember when my dad first told me about tracking, I literally thought, I was a young kid, but I literally thought it was people just walked out onto the street and started asking everybody that they saw if they were going to go see a movie that weekend or what movie they were going to see. And I was just kind of like, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense that they do this. The science of polling it's been around a long time, but it is wildly imperfect, right?
It is incredibly imperfect. So over the years, there have been improvements to those departments in movie studios because of social media, because of new metrics that we're able to track from people on their phones. Signing up for tickets in advance is another metric that has become useful. There is a feeling that we're getting closer and closer to understanding what the box office is going to be. And yet, TRON Ares was tracking to make $45 to $50 million. And that was the number for the past, I want to say 10 days leading into the release of the film. Then on Friday night, they're like, oh, only these many people showed up, so we're going to revise our numbers down. Then Sunday morning happens, and they're like, oh my God, even fewer people came than we thought. We're going to revise our numbers now. To Monday morning, where they're like, wow, this is how many people showed up, and it's way less than anticipated.
I mean, that's a pretty significant, I don't know what the percentage is there, but that's 25% less than they expected, or even more, maybe 35%. That's not within the typical margin error of polls.
Which is pretty crazy, Max. And again, movies in general take a long time to make. After Tron Legacy, they might have had this in development for a long time. And then just over the course of 10 days, the expectations could just so vastly change. So mentioning that because we are in this world now where data has been so helpful in determining what people want. And, everyone talks about the algorithm knowing, what we want and serving the right things. And yet tracking is still this magic black box. And they're constantly pushing researchers and people that work in the tracking space, get better and figure out how to solve it. And why did this happen and all that stuff.
Do exactly what I want right now. Use your magic, mathematicians. Use your math magic.
Absolutely. And another example of this is Big Bold Beautiful Journey, which we talked about just a couple weeks ago. The
Yeah.
movie, I think, going into the weekend, thought it was going to maybe make 10 million, and then they maybe revised it to be like, oh, it might only make 8 million, and then it made 4. So what is so interesting now is that despite all this influx of data, tracking lately has been so wildly unpredictable, both in the very bads and the very goods. A positive example of this is the Jurassic World Rebirth movie that came out this summer. I'm blanking on the numbers, but it was supposed to make X opening weekend, and lo and behold, it made like 30% more than that.
Yeah.
And that was really surprising for a lot of people.
Including Max Kessler. I was very surprised at its overall performance and how it just continued to make money all summer long. But yeah. What I find most interesting about this, Dave, is we have seen polling be wrong in things like our elections recently.
Yeah.
And even there's like a real famous, I think it was Harry Truman's reelection, where the polling numbers were like, this guy's going to get crushed. And then the results came in election day and he destroyed his opponent.
Wow.
They found the reason for that was they were doing polls over the phone, and like a lot of people didn't have a phone.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, but like we're living in a much different era now. Everyone has a phone. Everybody, like you said, is constantly telling Google and all these other companies what their thoughts and desires are. And there's even, I just read this book, Nexus, which is all about the history of information and a big warning about the power of AI. And a big thing that he covers in that book is that world leaders, whether they're autocrats, whether they're more democratic leading, whether from the Western world or the Eastern world, multiple world leaders have been quoted as saying, whoever owns the data has the power.
Wow. Yeah. That is terrifying.
It's very terrifying. And like, you know, if you look closely, like a lot of what's going on in international politics is around developing algorithms to control the most data and have access to the most data. And yet we cannot really determine who's going to go see a movie this weekend, what movie they're going to go see, how many people are going to go see it. It's extremely unreliable. And to be honest with you, that to me is super heartening. It kind of fills me with a little bit of hope. Humans are still so irrational and unpredictable that the machines we build ourselves to try and figure these things out cannot figure it out.
That's why I thought it was so interesting to bring up, is that in this age where data is rampant and everyone knows the importance of data, despite all our best efforts to be able to quantify in advance how something is going to perform, the movie theater going experience still is elusive. Yeah. And though movie executives are going to continue to push for better ways to make tracking more accurate, I think part of the excitement I feel as a moviegoer, I know part of the excitement I felt at a movie studio is that you never knew quite how the movie was going to perform until that weekend. And there are plenty of times where it doesn't work out, and it's really sad for the filmmakers, it's sad for the studios. But when it does, when it's going your way and the culture is gravitating towards it more than you expected, it's such a cool experience.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. You know, it's cool. The magic is still magic, and we still don't understand it. And that's one of the beautiful things about the movies. As far as the rest of the box office goes, it was kind of equally tame across the board. We had this Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst comedy drama kind of based on a true story movie called Roofman come out. I actually don't know what the reviews were like, but I was considering putting it on my most anticipated films of the fall. I think it looks really, really cool and interesting, and I am hoping to make it out. It made a very modest $8 million. And I don't know kind of what the studio wanted out of that or didn't want out of that, but that might be okay for a modestly budgeted movie with not a huge ad campaign, or it might be a tragedy because there's a bunch of movie stars in this. I don't know, Dave.
Yeah, I've heard good things, and the reviews are mostly positive. It is getting good enough to still, quote unquote, like be alive. It's not a total bomb at the box office. It's not it's definitely far from a slam dunk. I think people will hopefully discover it over the next couple of weeks. Max, you and I have not gone to see it though. Maybe it's just because it's just such a crowded time.
Well, yeah, we just got bombed with like 30 movies to go see this week, so it is what it is. We're doing our best. But similarly, I mean, on that note, One Battle After Another, as we kind of predicted, is having some pretty strong legs. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about, this is during the school year. It's making, on some instances, over $1 million a day. at the box office on the weekdays, which is very large and very
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah, I think Roofman will carry in a similar way that One Battle has. It'll find an audience a little bit over time. Will it like become a moneymaker? Who knows? But One Battle is still very, very far from becoming profitable theatrically alone. However, the apocalyptic forecast that people were giving with its opening numbers have kind of proved to be incorrect. Like it just cost $138 million worldwide. That means it's just about reaching its budget, depending on who you ask, whether it's 130 or 150. And it's proving to be the biggest moneymaker for Paul Thomas Anderson, which is really cool for his career. People are still really liking it. I think people are going to continue to go see it. And it is another one of those like really good signs. Good word of mouth will get people out to the movie theater. You make a good movie, it'll find an audience. So that feels really great.
Nice.
On a similar note, kind of, this movie that we discussed, Gabby's Dollhouse, this kids movie based upon a Netflix show of the same name, is also having a little bit of legs. You know, there's these kids films, they have a tendency to stick around, mostly because there's only so many things available for kids of that age to take their parents to, or for their parents to take them, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But it crossed $46 million worldwide, which means it's surpassed its budget. Still don't know if that's going to be like theatrically a big moneymaker for them, but once you start including VOD and the extra value added for Netflix that its show had this big movie, it's a good thing for everybody involved in that project, and I'm happy for it, even though I continue to know nothing about it.
Yeah, and I also agreed, Max. Don't know anything specifically about the property, but just because we've talked about when movies get dated being a part of the equation, I don't think there are a lot of things for kids and families right now. So I think this is an exercise of whether the movie's good or not. There's just not a lot out there. So if you're babysitting and you got a couple kids and you got to find an activity for them to do to get them out of the house. Smurfs is gone. K-pop Demon Hunters is not there either. Like there are fewer of those.
Yeah, but you know what is out there that we talked about much earlier in the season, and we were both like, "Why is this movie getting a sequel?" Is Bad Guys 2, which has far surpassed double its budget at this point because it just hung around, and we were both like, "Why is this happening?" And it proved us very wrong. I've been holding back talking about it for weeks, Dave, but I keep checking on it, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting to me.
Wasn't it? It was like an August release, and October. That's great, man.
Yeah, man. And it's this is an $80 million movie. It's at 227, so
crushing
good for them.
All right, and then Max, just wanted to also highlight a couple other releases that fall under what we call the specialty box office. Specialty box office is essentially anything that's not released in the maximum amount of theaters, and that usually means anywhere from like 3,500 to 4,000 theaters in North America. But anything under the specialty box office is like anything that's like much less than 3,000. Sometimes that's 6 theaters, sometimes that's 1,000 theaters. It really ranges. So we quantify that differently. You wouldn't expect a movie that was in 10 theaters to open to $20 million. The math just doesn't work that way. So oftentimes what people talk about for these types of movies is your per screen average, per theater average. So I wanted to just bring up that Max put on like our list of fall movies to anticipate. This movie called Good Boy was released by IFC, came out last weekend, opened to $2 million-ish, 2.3, I think it was. And now is at about $5 million in about 1,600 screens. And Good Boy was much more modestly budgeted. It was done independently.
Was there a marketing budget for this film? It's hard to say because I haven't seen anything for it. There's a trailer online that I'm obsessed with, as I mentioned in our fall preview episode.
Yeah, I actually read that IFC, they were going to just distribute it to their streaming service, but it got such positive interest, such positive reviews, because the movie, again, Max described it a couple weeks ago, is focused around a dog who gets a sense of the supernatural and is essentially trying to defend his parents, kind of in like the horror genre vein, but from the perspective of a dog. Won a lot of people's hearts, and IFC was like, shoot, we got to listen to our audience. They really want to see this. So then they put it in some theaters.
That's cool. I'm hearing good things. I was supposed to go see it today, but my power went out and it put me behind on everything. So sometime in the next few days, that continues to be my white whale at the movie theater.
Yeah, gotta get to it. Next one was this movie called Kiss of the Spider Woman. I think that's doing very little research. I think it's based on a best-selling musical.
It is based on a musical that was based on a play.
Got it. Okay,
I've seen the play, but I haven't seen the musical.
How was
But
the play?
I hear the play's great, but it's
Okay.
like literature. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like heavy duty stuff. And I hear the musical is also really great, and it takes the edge off a little bit.
Yeah.
And the movie looks really great, and it has some big stars in it. And yet, what the hell's going on with this movie, Dave?
Dude, man, I don't know. So Jennifer Lopez and Diego Luna, this movie was in 1,300 theaters, so a little less than Good Boy, but pretty similar, made $1 million. So literally a dog that no one's ever heard of made more money than the Jennifer Lopez Diego Luna movie, is what we're saying.
Oh, dude.
This burn. I hate to
Sticking
say
the knife
that.
in there, Dave.
Yeah, just a gut shot. Everyone hopefully listening knows that I am a cinephile, but I also have a marketing brain. I will just go back to the fact that though it's based on a play, the title is just terrible. No one knows what A Kiss of a Spider Woman is, and that's a challenge.
And as a dude who has seen the play, I'll tell you, I still don't know why that's the title of play or of the musical. I'm sure it's actually said in it, but yeah, I think to your point, it is kind of confusing.
That's challenging, man. And then just wrapping up specialty box office. So this movie, After the Hunt, this was also on our fall most anticipated movies list, starring Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, Aya Adebari, just a powerhouse list of actors. And Luca Guadagnino directed, the guy who did Challengers. They're slowly rolling this one out here. So it was only in 6 theaters, starting in New York and Los Angeles. And here's where that per theater average phrase comes in. It made $25,000 per theater average. And I think that's good. I don't pretend to be the expert on it, but I think that's pretty good just for 6 theaters. And then it'll roll out in the coming weeks. Oftentimes, we had mentioned this, they do this to get good word of mouth on it. Ironically, so far, the reviews are very mixed, but I am still excited to go see it. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it too. I think the reviews are mixed largely because of the content. You're just not going to get like across the board positive reviews and something like that. So we'll just have to see for ourselves.
Yeah, totally. We're going through all these titles relatively quickly, and we're going to talk about a couple more because we are just in the heart of the fall movie season. So there's a bunch of great stuff out there. Max and I, we saw a couple movies each. We're going to quickly tell you about them. And I'll kick it off. So I was able to catch The Smashing Machine, and that is about a real UFC fighter in the late 90s and his rise to success, question mark? A real life guy named Mark Kerr, who was the early hero of UFC and helped bring it to what it is today, which is a over $7 billion industry. So it was an interesting premise. And it was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson starring as this guy, Mark Kerr, but taking a very different approach to pretty much everything you've ever seen Dwayne Johnson do before. Dwayne, of course, is like the lead of movies like Red One, which was a CGI-filled Christmas adventure romp? Question mark?
That movie was bananas. It featured Santa Claus bench pressing and talking about his daily caloric intake. It was out there.
Really, really weird stuff. He was also in Jumanji, which was very successful with Jack Black and Kevin Hart. And he was also in Jungle Cruise. Yes, the movie based on the ride in Disney World.
We would call that not quite Pirates of the Caribbean.
Definitely swung and missed on that one. Both very commercially disastrous and also just an abomination to my own eyes. It co-starred Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt is one of the most talented actresses out there right now. She's phenomenal. So they have a relationship since that movie, and they together starred in a movie directed by one of the Safdie brothers. I'm going to go with Benny. And though the log line is like you're following a UFC fighter in the late 90s and his kind of rise to fame and fall, question mark, the movie's deliberately paced, and the real action is the dialogue between Dwayne's character and Emily Blunt's character, who plays Mark Kerr's wife. And they're very thoughtful and very visceral in how they are both codependent and love each other, but also just like mean as hell to each other. Mm-hmm. And then the battles where you finally get Dwayne Johnson in UFC is actually not as compelling as I thought. So it was just different than what I was expecting as a movie. And it was good. It was like a character study. And I think ultimately what I'm leaving with is like, I was really impressed with Dwayne's performance. He was much more thoughtful. I did not think that he had this in him, especially after a movie like Jungle Cruise.
So I love how mad you are about Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, I'm coming a little hot on Jungle Cruise.
Jungle Cruise is your Superman.
Yeah,
And that'll
maybe.
be the first picture of this t-shirt. Jungle Cruise was my Superman.
But yeah, so I would suggest that you would see it in theaters because again, it's the quieter moments of this that make the performance and the director really compelling. And at times it can be kind of a tough watch, kind of an uncomfortable watch, but brings up really interesting issues. So that's my review.
Yeah, I still think I want to see it. I'm as a young Rock fan, a guy who watched him wrestle and was completely electrified by his performance back in the day. Like I am, always rooting for him in one way or another. He's not perfect, but I am very interested. I do see that the reviews are like very mixed on the movie, and I'm kind of shocked. I thought it was going to absolutely explode at the box office because the UFC audience is so huge and The Rock is so beloved and Emily Blunt rules so much, and it just fucking didn't. And I'm very curious about that. But we're not talking about that right now. We're going over some of the movies we saw. I saw a real interesting, stupid, awesome movie called Bone Lake.
Bone Lake.
Premises two couples out at this very fancy Airbnb. It kind of markets itself as this extremely dripping in sex slasher movie, but there's four characters, so there's like not that much killing going on. What there is a long buildup to the killing, and there's all this really interesting psychological manipulation and who's telling the truth and what's actually going on. Again, not a great movie. The first thing I said when I walked out of it was I've never seen a film that had so much disregard for its own geography. People were just like popping up in random rooms. I'm like, how did you get here? How are you under the fucking dock suddenly? But they kind of leaned into it, and it was all in service of this story about one couple manipulating the other in order to murder them.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
probably like peak B movie. And for that reason, I advocate super highly for you to go check it out in theaters. It's one of those movies that makes you go, man, like me and my buddy should get together and make a movie. And like, because you think you're watching it and you think it's dumb, but at the same time, you're really emotionally engaged with what's going on. So it's a very successful film. Yeah.
That's cool. I could be way off on it, but you're saying two couples together, one kind of manipulating the other one. What that sounds like to me is that movie, I think it was called Speak No Evil, which was like James McAvoy and
Dude, the reviews on Letterboxd are literally, it's like dumb Speak No Evil. like you see it over and over again. People are all like, this is like Speak No Evil, but for dummies. Although like, I don't want to shit on it because I think the movie had a very good sense of what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody showed up and really tried to make the best movie that they possibly could. It was sexy, like it said it was going to be in the theater, and it was bloody, like it said it was going to be. What was surprising about it is the psychological thriller aspect that I think it did pretty well and stupidly at the same time. It was interesting.
And you said you thought it sold on the sexy killer element of it, but it was more conversation, psychological messing with was what got you going.
Yeah, you couldn't kill someone until the final third of the movie because there's only four people in the movie and it's two people versus two other people. So good marketing, I would say.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. That ties pretty decently into the next movie that I saw, which I was able to see, Good Fortune, which is coming out soon. I was able to see a screening of it. It stars Aziz Ansari, Seth Rogen, Keanu Reeves, Keke Palmer. It was also directed by Aziz as well. This was also on our fall preview list. I think I referred to it as a dude's Freaky Friday, which I'm still proud of that. But I think an added comp to that is this all-time classic, if you haven't seen this movie, called Trading Places, which was a young Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd essentially switching places in the cast system, a rich Dan Aykroyd and a poor Eddie Murphy. So this movie, Good Fortune, Aziz, who's like an Uber driver and TaskRabbit guy, is serving a very wealthy Seth Rogen, who is a tech genius billionaire guy. And a magical angel played by Keanu Reeves helps switch them. And the premise is that Keanu is so good-hearted and naive that he thinks giving the other a taste of their other's life will make them understand how good they have it and go back to the life they originally had and belong in. And lo and behold, Aziz goes from poor to rich, and he's like, fuck this is awesome being rich. And Seth ends up being a TaskRabbit, Uber driver guy, just trying to make ends meet. And he's like, this is awful. I don't know how people ever do this. This is terrible. And it was very, very enjoyable. It both balanced social thematics that Max, you and I, we love to talk about on these podcasts about like what it's trying to say about the American heart, but also it's not so serious. It really does try to deliver some funny beats, some funny comedic set pieces, and I think it was really successful. I guess if anything, I have to kind of fault the directing a little bit. I thought the directing was just kind of like a little bit basic.
Well, I mean, look, man, like, I worked in comedy for a long time, and we would run into these problems shooting TV comedy in particular because you're on such a tight schedule. But I've also shot my own comedy stuff, and directing comedy is very, very difficult. The difference between being like, should the joke land in a close up, in a medium, in a wide? Is it physical? From what angle and what perspective?
Yeah.
Does how the camera moves and stuff like that? It's very, very, very difficult to find the joke behind the
Yeah.
camera. And then on top of that, usually comedies, like, they don't have the budget that, these
Yeah.
other types of, nobody's giving, BTA got $150 million. Like, nobody gave him that to Aziz Ansari to make this movie. So
Nope.
he was probably limited by schedule, maybe a little bit by experience too. I don't know what his behind the camera experience really is, but when you're just like, we got to get all these shots and all these coverage, it can give a very stiff feel to a lot of comedies. And it's a problem, since the dawn of time. So
Totally, yeah, and worth mentioning also because there was another good comedy that came out this summer, which was Naked Gun, and that type of humor was a little different from this movie, where it was like very heavily visual. Good Fortune has some of that, but a lot of it is funny conversations, funny dialogue, and
really hard to shoot.
it is a different beast for what Aziz had to do. And not that it was bad. I wish it was just like a little fancier, but also maybe I'm being too hard on it to all the things that Max you're saying. It's like it was really really good, really really fun. I laughed a lot. So hell yeah, you guys should go see it.
Yeah, if you left laughing, then they did their job right, and that's kind of all there is to it.
Absolutely. All right, Max, close us out.
I got another special invitation to my friend's movie. I went to a screening of Black Phone 2 at Beyond Fest at the Aero Theater in Santa Monica. I've said it before on the pod, but I'm friends with the filmmakers. They have done just a really fantastic job with the sequel.
That's great, man.
It's a huge expansion on the familial relationships in that. My buddy Ed, who I went to go see it with, on the drive home, told me repeatedly, he's like, "Yeah, man." And I got to the end there, and I was tearing up, like I had tears going. And it's like, yeah, legit. Like, I was very engaged with who these people are and the struggles that they keep going through with this evil force in all of their lives. They took it to a new, interesting setting. I know that they were shooting, in the snow, in the cold, and you feel that when you're watching the movie. So I'm glad that the pain and suffering that the filmmakers and the crew went through really comes across on screen. But it was interesting too, seeing this movie for the second time, for one, because the first time I saw it, like, a lot of the visual effects weren't complete. The cut was very long. So when I came back to see it this time, it was the final cut of the movie. Everything was done. It's what you're going to see in theaters. And instead of like a small select group of friends in a weird screening room, in Filipino town, this was like a big, iconic LA theater full of horror movie fans who were fucking jazzed to go see it. And so I really got to feel like the group think and group emotion that everybody was experiencing doing this. And I had seen it. I knew what happens. And I was laughing harder at the jokes, and I did laugh at the other screening, even with the movie incomplete, which I think speaks to the success of the film itself. Yeah. But I was tense. I was tensing up, and I knew everything that happened in it. Like, there were no surprises for me. So
that's great though, man. That's awesome.
And just like hearing like a crowd full of people reacting so exuberantly to the film, I think good things are in store for the box office performance of this movie. I don't even know if this is a spoiler. It's a sequel to a movie where like the killer died. So this is them dealing with how his evil spirit lingers. So this is more of a ghost story than it is a serial killer story. Even in death, they can't get rid of this guy because he is haunting their family specifically. Oh, wow. And that they have to resolve things themselves in order to, resolve this thing with the evil spirit. And just a great way to build on the mythology. So they did a very good job.
It's really interesting because the two pieces of iconography, and in marketing, we end up talking a lot about iconography, as well as I'm sure in screenwriting, because it's just so helpful for the audience, whether it's a phone or a pen, whatever it is. And the mask of the first one was such a core piece of the iconography. And that was the thing that I think really traveled for me as far as social media feed and the marketing of it. And again, not seeing the movie, not being as close to it as you, Max, just seeing like that's That's what they're really leaning into. And they don't have to really give you much more, at least in the out of home and the posters that I've seen. It's just like seeing that scary ass mask again. And you're like, oh, he's back. And
Yeah.
you don't know what form he's in or whatever. But that was really interesting for me that they are building the campaign around that.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, when he appears in the film, it's like, ooh, it's like gives you the shivers. It's very unsettling. It's very well done. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we checked off a couple. I'm proud of us, man. It was like
We're getting through it, dude. But we still got a bunch, man. Like, I still haven't seen him. It's becoming increasingly unlikely that I'll be able to pull that off, even though it was on my most anticipated list.
Same here, man.
I'm gonna make it the good boy. Like, it's
yes.
happening.
Yeah. And then Roofman, I think on my list, I'm going to also try to make it the good boy, but I think I will probably rank After the Hunt even higher than that. I think that was a little bit more anticipated for me. Because of the Spider-Woman, it's got great reviews. It stars Jennifer Lopez. It stars Diego Luna, who was in my favorite show of the year, Andor. Yeah. And $1 million just so surprises me. So I'm going to try to sneak that in. But man, there's just sometimes, even for cinephiles like us, sometimes it's hard to get to the theater. But we think it's worth it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Why is it so important to get your butt to the theater?
Well, Max, we're basing this whole episode kind of around theater going, and I don't know if I can totally distill an answer to your question, but I would love to do nothing more than convince more and more people to do that thing. Max, I think you maybe have some more hard information on it, but I will just express my...
Speak from the heart, dude. Like, I'm going to talk science, but like, give us what's in your guts, man.
I'm going to give you the emotional answer, which is, guys, just be honest. It's just better. It's better to be in a movie theater. It's just downright better, guys. Your movie experiences are memorable in your theater and not when you're on your couch.
Yeah. Oh, weird. When you're paying attention to the movie, it's more memorable for you. Crazy.
Yes. And that over the last 3 or 4 years, I think has become quite evident when it comes to the Netflix effect. Netflix has won the streaming war. We all watch great content on it, but there's been proof that those movies culturally that you watch on Netflix don't stay in the cultural zeitgeist the same way that a movie that is released in theaters for a long enough time and a big audience in America and around the world goes to see it.
Yeah. And like the other reason behind that is they're not even trying to make movies that hit the cultural zeitgeist. They want to capture the attention of like a social media phenomenon going viral. And then as soon as it dies, they just want to give you another one, another one, another one. What they don't want to do, it seems, is create something like Star Wars or The Wizard of Oz or Toy Story or Lord of the Rings, something that sticks with you and is passed down to your kids and is like a movie you watch over and over and over and over again.
I totally agree. Going to the movie theaters is better than watching things at home. And yes, I picked on Netflix a little bit, but they are just so dominant now. That is why. But just from an emotional standpoint, the mechanism of receiving it is better in the theater versus home. And I don't care if you're incredibly wealthy and you might even have a home theater of yourself, seeing it out in the world. It doesn't have to be IMAX, but guarantee you the stereo system and the screen is going to be bigger, more enveloping in that environment than if you're at home. And Max, you got something on this, right?
There's actually hard data on why that's important or what that actually does for you. It doesn't really take much for you to get on Google or get on ChatGPT and be like, why is the movie theater experience so much better? And the science behind it is twofold. For one, Dave, it's exactly like you're talking about. The equipment's better.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bigger screen. The sound system is not only louder, but it is more dynamic. There was more range in the sound system. It's surrounding you on all sides. There are sound effects that are happening in the front of the theater on the right side that are different than happening on the back left. And even like you said, if you have a surround sound system at home, it's not producing at the same decibels. It's not filling your room and filling your space in the same way that it is all encompassing when you're in a movie theater. The other thing that you're doing in a theater, and this predates movies, is you are going and you are sitting next to strangers and you are all making this like social contract that this is the place where we sit and watch and we say nothing. We're simply here to observe and absorb, and we're listening to whatever the people on the stage or on the screen are telling us.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all syncing with each other. And there is a psychological effect to doing that with other people. So as far as like the technology goes, the immersive experience in the larger picture and the all-consuming sound creates a psychological experience of actually being in this virtual environment, this
Mhm.
environment that we all know is fake. It makes you feel like you're actually there experiencing these things as the characters on the screen or on the stage are experiencing it as well.
I love it. Yeah, dude. Thank you for backing up my very emotional plea with your more scientific one. I think that's the first part of the two-part of equation of just like the inputs around you are just better.
And it changes you physically. Your pupils dilate more and your reaction times are increased. Like
Really.
things like really small, subtle things like that. Like you're much more hooked in. And that's another reason why, I mean, I know some people are dickheads and pull out their phones during the theater, but it's why a lot of us feel in the moment when we're in the theater, even for one of the movies that isn't as engaging as Weapons was for us or One Battle
Sure.
After Another was for us. Like Bone Lake, I was fucking in it to win it. I don't think I
Yeah.
would be that way when I was at home. I'd be all over my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And a movie like Good Fortune, I know that there were more laughs because of this social contract, Max, that you mentioned. We were all in the collective environment surrounded by other people that were invested in this story where Keanu Reeves is an angel. So we know we're not living in reality.
Yeah.
Maybe Keanu actually is an angel. Who's to say? The second part of the equation is you yourself. You are a better participant in a movie theater. And yes, I will caveat that we've all had the experience of the person that, taking out their phone or the person that is talking to their loved one. We all remember that and scorn those people because they are the anomaly. If you tell that friend that we mentioned at the top that like they're going to wait and see it at home, guarantee you that they're checking their Instagram when they're doing it. I guarantee you they're pausing to make a little dinner. And hey, man, that's all. I support that. I love those experiences.
Yeah. And like, look, what did Dave and I say? Like, we haven't made it to all these movies. We know that you're not going to either. Like, we don't want to shit on watching movies at home. Watching movies at home is awesome. But going out to see them in theaters is a completely different experience.
Yes. Like a movie like The Smashing Machine, and I mentioned, though it is a UFC related movie, some of the nuance of Emily Blunt saying something really scathing to Dwayne Johnson, I think about that, me watching that at home, and I know I would have like missed it because I was like checking like my scores in my fantasy football league.
Yeah. And the other science around seeing a movie in theaters is it starts to create a shared physical experience between people. When you're sitting next to somebody else, and this also happens, like, it's really easy to measure at like concerts, like live music, but it's the same in theaters, is that you start to get what's called interbrain synchrony, which means that when like a crescendo moment happens, your heart rate increases. And if you measure your heart rate and the heart rate of the people next to you, evidently your heart rates are in sync. Like the same kind of emotional, physical expression as well as same headspace.
I have to say that's exactly the Weapons finale experience. That's you and I'm sure I'll watch Weapons again when it comes to home viewing, but it will not be watching the villain be taken apart will not give the same experience that.
No, you're not going to be like trying to not stand up in your seat and scream and joy. Like the catharsis moment in that movie was so awesome. But zoom out on the importance of this versus staying at home alone to watch movies. When you are having a very similar emotional and physical experience with strangers sitting next to you, engaging with a story that is about, whether it's Weapons, it's about the shared expression of grief, whether it's in Smashing Machine, which is the story of perseverance. You are walking out of that movie with an experience that literally physically bonded you closer to the people that you were in that theater with. And that is a very, very important thing. I think that's why live theater started to exist thousands of years ago in the first place, and why we're so drawn to things like stand-up comedy and music and movies and all that other stuff. And with the dwindling sales of movie tickets partially being attributed to the fact that people are just like, I can stay home and watch it on Netflix, you're not just robbing yourself of like the experience of viewing a movie, you're robbing yourself of a much larger experience of sharing understanding and emotional comprehension with your fellow citizens by not taking part in these theatrical experiences, whether it's movies, whether it's music, whether it's live comedy or whatever. Sitting at home and doing it by yourself, it's not what it's actually for. Not that you can't benefit from it, not that it still can't be great, but that's really not what it's for. We didn't stumble upon these things because they're just entertaining. Entertainment has a larger purpose, and that's to bring us closer together. And you get a little bit of that when you're at home, but you get a lot more of it when you're sitting next to people.
Love that, Mac. Beautifully said, Max. Thank you, everyone, for listening to get the full reason of why we think theater going is so important. And we'll continue to talk about this on this podcast. And it is worth mentioning again now with technology, there's so many options of watching things everywhere, but this is why theater going is special, what Max said. So in order to do that, these are maybe obvious, but I wrote Dave's suggestions for movie going, it's nothing genius or groundbreaking, but I think oftentimes people that aren't as into movies as Max and I are can just get overwhelmed and can maybe even be semi-interested in a premise or a plot or a movie star, and then they're like, it's in theaters, I don't want to deal with it, I'll wait till later. So I just wrote down my tips for movie going, which are all maybe pretty obvious. Max, feel free to chime in and add your own. Overall, it's all about finding ways to make that barrier to entry of going to the movie theater much lower. Because I know that feeling when it's high in your head and you're finished from a long day of work or a long week and you're like, I kind of want to see that. It looks interesting, but I can't do it. So
it's not today or da, 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 da. Oh, 8:45. I would go if it was at 8:30, but 8:45, I'm just not sure.
Exactly. And hey, we've all been there. But in general, I think it's just not trying to tackle that question each individual time and just come up with a basic system that works for you. So for me, it's a 3-part system, all pretty basic, but the first one is just find your theater. Doesn't mean it's the only one that you go to, but find the one that you feel most comfortable with. And that's the one where you check the movie times most regularly to see what's playing.
Could I add to that real quick, Dave? I would also don't let perfection be the enemy of persistence. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be the best one. It doesn't have to be the best sound system with the biggest screen. I know I just made a pretty good argument for going to see a movie that way. When One Battle After Another came out, I was in Idaho. I didn't have VistaVision. I didn't have 70 millimeter. I didn't have IMAX, and I went to see the movie, and it fucking ruled anyways. So yeah,
totally agree, Max. My local movie theater does not have IMAX, and I've seen plenty of big movies on those screens and had a great time. And I think oftentimes, to sometimes our own detriment, the marketers in the movie business pitch you on, you got to see The Brutalist in this form. Yeah. And yes, that's all great and well and good, but there's all of these versions are better than watching it at home when you're going to be distracted. So find just a theater that you groove with, and that could be different for anyone. You know, sometimes it's just about which one has the bar. Sometimes there's a theater that has a bar and that makes it good for you. Go to that theater.
Totally.
If that's your AMC, that's great. My preferred theater actually isn't an AMC just because the parking situation at that AMC is not one of my favorites. And it's as simple as that. But whatever your routine is, find yours and just have that set and use that as the excuse to check on what movies are playing and because it should be about as easy as it is for you. Number 2 for us is just finding whatever your own rhythm is and make movie going a habit. And maybe this is a marketer of movies wanting to be lazy and putting the onus on you, the audience. But if you are checking the movie theater show times once a week, hey, I'm going to check on Wednesday nights what's playing at my local theater this weekend as just a touchstone of what art is around me. Make it a every other week or maybe a once a month. Hey, what's going on in my local theater is a great way to make it a routine and not just like, I'm going to wait for someone in marketing to bother me on the movie to go see it.
I also would encourage you to create a plan, maybe not a complicated one, but we've said multiple times, including today, what's great about seeing a movie is seeing it with other people. And part of that is when you walk out of the movie is having something inherently to talk about. Mm-hmm. Make it a commitment. Once a month, I'm going to go take my partner out on a date to see a movie. Make it do it like a book club. Once a month, I'm going to meet up with a bunch of my friends and we're all going to see a movie. It doesn't need to be a smart movie. It could be the dumbest movie ever. One of my fondest memories was seeing the Shane Black Predator movie with a bunch of my buddies who were huge Predator fans.
Yeah.
And us talking about it afterwards. We talked about our experience seeing the first Predator and the second Predator on VHS and seeing the Adrian Brody Predators. And then this one, you're building a history of experiences together. Or you can make it super intellectual. I just want to make sure I see some super serious movies every year. So once a month, I'm committing to do it. It's going to be the third Thursday of every month. And we're going to be there come hell or high water. Picking that routine that's good for you. What day of the week do I like to see it? Do I like to see it with the big crowds on opening weekend? Or do I like to see it on a Tuesday night on half price night with nobody in the theater? Do I like going during the day? I mean, I like going alone to the movie theaters a lot, but that doesn't stop me from going alone. I
Of
go alone.
course, yeah. And it really is whatever works in your schedule. But I think overall the idea of just making it a priority. And it doesn't mean it needs to take over your whole world. I think overall we are admitting that many people tell me that they like to watch stuff at home so they can turn their brain off. And I very much understand that, especially with the busy lives that we all have. Ultimately, what I am saying, and I think Max agrees, is like, this is not that. And that's good. Doesn't mean you're not going to see Predator, and that's a fun movie. But yeah, this is an active experience. And that's why we love it so much. Home watching can also be fun and engaging, but it's very much a more passive experience in my eyes.
Yeah, and like and especially if you intentionally want it to be so. But if you're exclusively doing it that way, even if you're going to see Predator Badlands with your friends, like you're missing out on that connective experience you have with people that are important to you and with strangers that is really wholly unique and only exists in these type of theatrical entertainment experiences.
Totally agree. And then, okay, the third and final point, which is what Max has been saying, is just find a community to talk about it with you. And I guess most simply and easily, bring that person with you to the movies. If it's your spouse, if it's your partner, if it's just your best friend, if it's your mom, if it's your dad, go invite them to it and see it together to talk about it. But now the upside of the digital age that we live in is that you can connect with people that are not even in the theater with you. Heck, we're talking about this, hoping you're hearing this and knowing that other people care about movies the way you do. So whether that's on a podcast like this, another hack is just like finding a critic. If you're more old school, yeah, look up the LA Times or the New York Times or your local theater critic and see if you agree with them. Hopefully you get them commenting on a movie that you've seen and getting new insight into it. But also they can tell you about movies that you weren't necessarily on your radar that you're excited about.
Kind of about finding a like-minded person. There's so many great ways to find a critic. One of my best buddies writes movie reviews on Letterboxd that are very culturally critical, but it makes me very interested in seeing these movies through a much different lens. Or I'm going to shout out another podcast that I've really been loving called What Went Wrong, which is about just how difficult it is to make movies. They're mostly talking about movies that are classics that we either love or that bombed really hard. But through the journey that I've been going on with them as I obsess over their podcast, is they've just made me really excited to watch stuff. Mm-hmm. And me and my partner were listening to their Dirty Dancing episode the other day, and then we immediately watched Dirty Dancing, and it was super fun. So that's another really great way, Dave. That's a great way to shout out, like find a critic, find a movie fan or whatever it is that you want to call it, and engage with them, and then engage with the movies that they're talking about.
Absolutely. And of course, that is kind of buttoned to the fact that now, if you're listening to this, if you made it this far into the pod, talk to us about it. Send us an email, DM us on our socials. We are doing this to hear what you guys think about it. Obviously, Max and I, like, we love movie going and would love everyone's input on it and also on this show because we're still early on in it, but we've been talking about movies for years, and this is just kind of who we are, and we love a sense of community about movies. And it's better. It's just better in the theater, man. Just do it.
It's better. It's better.
Just
don't
admit
tell
it.
us it's not better.
I think that's all I got, Max, for the week. How about you? Yeah,
that's it, man. Well, what are we looking forward to in the future here, Dave?
Coming up, we have another pretty iconic auteur filmmaker with his new movie, Begonia, which is directed by this guy, Yorgos Lanthimos, and it stars Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone. Emma Stone is the star. And so that's coming out on October 24th. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about Halloween in general. Kind of an odd year for Halloween movies in that Halloween is on a Friday and there is no major horror release on Halloween. How do you feel about that, Max?
Well, I feel kind of crazy about it because it's been such an interesting year for horror, and part of it makes a lot of sense. People are going to be out on Halloween. Maybe they don't want to go to the movies, but part of it's insane because, there's actually a big fun thing to do on Halloween is to go to a screening of Hocus Pocus or Nightmare on Elm Street or this or that. So it is kind of strange, but it will be kind of cool. It'll be a good way to like look back on the year and be like, how did horror play into 2025? How are things changing? I'm looking forward to that conversation big time.
Me too, dude. All right. Well, that's all I got for it, Max. What a great busy couple of weeks of movies. And I know where I'll see you.
At the movies, my friend. I'll see you there.